Hello for a third time. I anticipated there would be just two of these videos, but I didn't quite get through enough of the questions. I apologize now if I don't get to all the questions within the next 10 or so minutes. I don't intend to go much longer, just out of respect for your time and attention and cognitive load. So I think I'll just actually scroll to the bottom of the document now and kind of work my apologies if I don't get to all of these. Trust me, I've looked at all of them, and I can tell you for sure that all of these questions are extremely awesome, and that the comments preceding the questions are definitely worth checking out as well. All 60 something of them. It's good. It's awesome. I really appreciate this engagement, for serious. So Clara asks, the question I have is to see the role of education in addressing systemic inequities and promoting inclusivity. Agreed. Particularly in the context of emerging technologies like AI. So I'm sorry. So it is how to see the role of education evolving in addressing systemic inequities. I think that if education is doing its job, it's going to give everybody a chance to succeed to their full potential, um, irrespective of who they are, or maybe more to the point, respecting everybody's background. That's probably a better way of framing it. Respecting everybody's background, interests, and abilities while still maintaining educational standards. So I'm certainly limited by my experience, professional, personal background. I'm subject to in my own biases, my own prejudices, my own implicit assumptions and entrenched viewpoints. So as a person, I know that there are certain actions and activities I can take to sort of try and do better on my own level. And to the extent that my educational practice involves sharing the uh, ongoing results of that exploration through these podcasts, through writing activities, and other, I guess, professional outputs, so to speak, because I feel it's important as a reflective educator to document my progress, including, times that I may have, uh, I might not be doing the best job, but that's the point. You can't ever say that EDI is done. It's not. As soon as you start thinking in terms of silver bullets or band aids or whatever, it's like as soon as you think it's fixed, I mean, you stop paying attention to it, you take it for granted, and how far do you really go? So, like any aspect of the educational endeavor, it's a matter of constantly asking yourself, am I doing this as well as I can? What can I be doing better? And I think that that applies very much to the technology sphere. A lot of trial, a lot of error. One thing with a bit of concern in terms of emerging formats, platforms, and so forth is the implicit bias and the prejudices of the builders of these products, because the builders of these products are motivated to reap financial profits for the people who own the company, public or private. So you got to ensure that whatever product or application is going to be used in a manner which best reflects the lived experience and respects the lived experience. I guess that's probably more what it is. You know, compared to just kind of throwing out the intervention without too much planning. So, a teacher's greatest asset is planning and preparation, individual planning and preparation, knowing who your students are, opening up that dialogue, being respectful. I think it applies as much with technology as any other aspect of the educational endeavor. Meme, I hope I've got that right. Canada is a diverse country, and compulsory introduction of text from around the world assist in appreciation and understanding of its development. Are there policies that encourage institutions to study broadly? My experience is that there are very good communities at every institution, good individuals, good communities of practice. There's always at least one other person down the hall who down the hall um, who will at least be sympathetic to what you're trying to do or trying to achieve. And very often it's going to be more than that. But again, I think just as I said to the previous comment, it's really a matter of individual educators making the decision about what's important and acting on that consistently and then sharing that. You have a tremendous ability and power as an individual in the classroom or whatever your setting is as a practitioner. Everybody has their own sphere of influence. Everybody has the ability to make up their mind to do their best job at EDI as they can. And again, the fear of getting it wrong shouldn't prevent you from trying it anyway, because you can only do better. Even if you're doing awesome, you can always do better. Aditi, how do you suggest educators navigate the inherent that can arise in educational settings, especially when facilitating discussions on sensitive topics like race, gender, and privilege? Yeah, I mean, I just think I know that in the public sphere, where public resources and public oversight is involved, that these discussions can be politically troublesome, fraught. I mean, again, I just would take it back to what I've already said in this video. It's a matter of finding out what your priorities are as an individual and acting on them, even if it's only small steps, even if it's only small incremental changes. Spending some extra time to bring in a reading, finding that worksheet, creating resources based on or adapting or using open educational resources from good examples, going to the peer-reviewed literature, going to the professional literature. I mean, again, depending on what your setting and context is, those are any of those would be good starting points. Waiting for a mandate, waiting for something above you in terms of, like, an administrator or manager or a principal or whomever trying to go top down on this is probably less effective than individual educators, communities of practice, like-minded individuals coming up with their own approaches and resources and moving the bar forward at their level so that upper managers and administrators and politicians and whomever have to acknowledge that. Again, you may not be able to control what happens above you, but you always have some freedom or ability within your role. And using that judiciously is going to be important. I don't know that I have much else I can add to that. Reshma, does our current BC curriculum effectively address the roots of racism and inequality in schools? Are there gaps in between the curriculum recommendations and text? I can't speak to that myself because I'm not a K-12 educator. I'm not in BC even at the moment. My kids are both in public schools, and I've been thoroughly impressed by the school-wide efforts in their respective schools and by individual teachers to move the bar forward in terms of things like, uh, acknowledging indigenous cultural significance, ways of knowing and being. I think indigenization actually coexists and sets a really good background for further delving into EDI uh, issues and frameworks and approaches. I believe in that very strongly, and I'd be happy to take that up with anybody in another setting. Juliana, you're going to get the last question. Given that EDI is now a popular buzzword, do you see EDI being incorporated in school or university curricula by simply a few academics, or is everybody striving to make a difference? Again, I sort of I know what you're getting at when you call EDI a buzzword. I on the one hand, I'll be the most cynical person in the world about people just sort of doing something performatively. But on the other side of it, sometimes even doing something performatively is better than not doing it because at least it's a starting point. At least it's acknowledging that something needs to happen. I honestly feel that Canada is much different and, in a lot of respects, better country than it was when I was younger, when I was a child, when I was a teen, or even as a young adult. We've had a pretty serious demographic shift over the past 20 years, and there's been a lot of really important changes within the context of legislation, workplace policies, workplace practices. The last role that I've been involved with has been in the private sector, and the company that I worked for had very robust language about EDI initiatives and issues, which drew from the legislation of provincial and federal both bodies of law, which cover diversity in the workplace, and then also, just in order to ensure that practices in the workplace align with, for instance, international standards organization requirements, quality assurance requirements, which are necessary for each sector to function relative to a what the wider public context. And I'm using the ISO standards. I'm pretty sure that applies primarily for private companies and government organizations, but nevertheless, um, these uh, the so-called buzzwords, I think, are not going away. I'm hoping that this is with us for the duration. And I'll finish this up by just saying you always have your own power, you always have your own agency as an educator to move this forward in your own way to the full extent that you can. And I think it's important to be mindful of that. Sorry for those who I didn't get to answer the questions, but I do appreciate all of you very much a lot for this. And again, thanks for the opportunity to try and speak to some of these awesome questions and comments. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.